Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello, Fun and Games Podcast, and welcome back to Side Quests. My name is Jake Steinberg, and I'm a writer and narrative consultant who loves video games. I have a YouTube channel, Jake Steinberg, where I stream and make videos breaking down games from a storytelling perspective. But for this side quest, we will be focusing our attention on a gem of my youth and one of the most sentiment-infused titles of my personal gaming history, Justice League Heroes, released in 2006 on PlayStation 2 and Xbox with some handheld versions of varying quality. It's a 3D beat-em-up game from an isometric perspective. Imagine something like Diablo, but featuring DC superheroes. Now, I want to start off by saying that this game is far from critically acclaimed. It's sitting at a generous 68 on Metacritic, but I don't care. I love this game. Now, I need to take you back for this one. I need to take you back to a time before Batman Arkham Asylum, before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, before superheroes become arguably the most mainstream entertainment brand in existence. I feel like you can see this timeline so clearly. As the brand power and the investment strength of superhero products goes up, so does the attention that these brands receive. And nowadays, there is this expectation that a superhero video game will be a certain caliber of prestige experience. Like, check this out. How many times have you heard that the Batman Arkham games make you feel like Batman, or that the Spider-Man games make you feel like Spider-Man? And that's the quality that any prestige narrative medium wants to achieve, right? It wants you to fully inhabit the depths of a given character's identity. Now, alongside this idea of what an acceptable superhero video game can be, I think that there is a desire to intellectualize that robs a lot of would-be fans of potential fun. I see it with so many big brands, from Star Wars to Pokemon. It's like this desire to explain why a thing you like is actually really deep and meaningful, and that's something that's just really important to people nowadays. And all of this feeds into why I love the little dinky Justice League Heroes game so much. It is a crystallization of this time period for me, in which superheroes are more tableaus, they're more action figures, broad strokes, bright colors than they are a cinematic contrivance. They're simple. And I think we forget how games can serve people that aren't just, the crowd I think we imagine in their 20s and 30s that are actively trying to be ponderous about video games. So again, taking it back, it's 2006 when this game was released. I was 12 years old. I loved the Justice League cartoons. And to this day, Superman is my favorite fictional character of all time. And back then in 2006, I could not believe that there was a video game that let me play as Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Zatanna, The Flash, all in one freaking video game. And again, looking at today now, could you imagine the AAA expectations that would be placed on a Justice League game? There would be all these highfalutin questions about balancing the narrative, fleshing out all the different gameplay styles. People would be racking their brains to answer to the question, how do we balance Superman? Well, let me tell you how Justice League Heroes did it. First off, every single character in this game, they have melee combos that can be performed with button combinations, and special moves that are performed by holding a bumper and pressing a button. Everyone can block, everyone can jump, some characters can fly, but that is pretty much it. So how do we balance Superman? When Superman is attacked by enemies, whether that be punches, gunshots, I presume insults, he gets hurt, just like everyone else, and it's fine. It's fine. The game is not weirdly obsessed with making you feel like the Man of Steel. Instead, it wants you to roleplay an episode of a superhero cartoon, which I think is exactly what the target audience for the game wants to do. And what is a Justice League game without teamwork, without being part of the league? So naturally, this whole game can be played in two-player co-op, or you can switch between. If you're playing on your own, you can switch between whichever two heroes are active in a mission. And it's so great. They do this so well, right from the top. First mission of the game, boom, here you go. Batman and Superman. And imagine how sick this was as a kid, knowing me and my brother, we're gonna play through this whole game, fighting bad guys together and feeling like we are contributing in unique and specific ways. Because like, I'm out here firing off heat vision and he's doing martial arts, throwing batarangs. It's different. It's meaningful. It's unique. You have a specific sentimental attachment to it. And I think that, speaking of the powers, for me and my tastes, games in this genre really come down to the differences in powers between the characters and how fun they are to use. And I'm really obsessed with some of what they do here, because I think the powers really lend themselves to isolating the differences in the characters and how one would imagine these heroes are benefits to their teams. So like Superman, for example, let's break down the Superman moveset. Heat vision can light enemies on fire for extra damage. Nice. His freeze breath can stop enemies in place. He has a super strong uppercut that can be charged for massive damage and a flying strike that propels him forward in a red blur towards whichever enemy you choose. But my favorite power is called Man of Steel. Once you activate it, it surrounds Superman in this red energy and vastly reduces the amount of damage he takes. So as a kid, I like to imagine, I know that I know I've got this ability. It's in my back pocket. And when I activate it, this is like the dramatization of Superman taking the kid gloves off. Whenever I come up against a particularly tough boss, or maybe my brother, his character, whoever he's playing as, gets defeated, I activate Man of Steel. And my Superman suddenly had a different tone in game. He had taken off the kid gloves. And sure, this is not an ability that Superman actually has. There is at no point to my knowledge, in any of the Justice League cartoons where Superman says, all right, time to get serious, glows with a red energy, a red aura surrounding his body, and then dives into the fight. But I think this ability is a great video game contrivance for what the game wants to inspire in a Superman player. It wants to inspire that moment, time to get serious. Now we look at Batman. Batman's moveset, you've got martial arts, batarangs, you've got a flash bomb that you can use to daze enemies, and a grapple line that you can use to close distance for a quick strike. And I always thought it was so cool. The grapple line attack was programmed to work on both enemies and the environment. So you could use it as like a zippy form of traversal as well. It just worked. And I feel like I could go through everyone's moveset in this game with admiration. But there are two characters I want to call out specifically. The Flash and Martian Manhunter. So first, the Flash. He had a move, not unlike Man of Steel, called Speed Force. The move served no obvious in-game purpose, but it delivers on the promise of the Flash being fast. Once you activate the move, the Flash starts to move. His literal movement speed goes way up. And I would say, for how relatively fast the rest of the game is, it's like shocking how much faster you're moving. And I used to activate the Speed Force and literally run circles around my brother's character, or use it to just like stay away from enemies when I was low on health. But it delivered on what you want to do as the Flash. Now, Martian Manhunter, who is that? Do you know? Has he crossed over in our mainstream superhero? Dear listener, do you know the Martian Manhunter, the green guy, literally from Mars? He's a shapeshifter. But his most iconic power is probably his ability to turn invisible and intangible. Now, hear me out. The way that they allow this power to manifest and exist in this game is sick. You activate the power and you can walk through all enemy attacks. Enemy shoots a laser, you walk right through it. But also, you can walk through most objects in the environment. So there's a stage in this game themed around this group of bee-themed villains, okay? They're called the Hive. And you're going through these waves of tough enemies. And at the same time, you have to punch through these heavy, like honeycomb walls. So you can imagine, the enemies are coming at you. Somebody's dealing with the enemies, somebody's punching through the walls. But playing as Martian Manhunter, I remember distinctly when I realized you could simply turn intangible and walk through the entire level. Attacks are not hitting you. You do not have to wail on the honeycomb walls. You simply, but goodbye. I'm going ghost. Goodbye. And the only drawback was that you completely abandoned your co-op partner. Sorry. And you know what? I'm so sorry. I just remembered. I got to call out one more hero. I just remembered. Green Lantern has a crowd control move that literally just traps an enemy in a green box. It might sound simple, but certain moments, you use it right, it makes you feel like a tactical genius. I love this stuff. Some other stray thoughts about the game. There are RPG elements, so you can upgrade and kind of customize your heroes. You can unlock alternate costumes and sometimes even like variants, so you can change the Flash or Green Lantern into completely different versions of that character. You get Wally West out there, you get Jay Garrick out there. And the boss fights in the game are pretty fun, and they feature some really weird members of the DC universe. The Key. You fight the Key, it's crazy. And finally, the game has a classic and easy to input cheat code system. So if you ever want to unlock all the costumes immediately, or you just feel constrained by the energy bar, by your mana, and you want to use all your powers without consequence, an experience I highly recommend trying at least once. That is no problem. Now, since I started this whole discussion, drawing comparisons between Justice League heroes, expectations surrounding modern superhero video games, I feel like I should point out the most obvious modern analog. Marvel Ultimate Alliance. This is a small detail, but there's something that actually makes me prefer Justice League heroes over the somewhat recent Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on Nintendo Switch. Justice League Heroes has melee combos that you execute by inputting different combinations of light and heavy attacks. Ultimate Alliance 3's normal moves are far more limited, and the combat relies on special moves that almost exclusively are your ways of dealing meaningful damage. That's like it. You really are using your special moves most of the time. And for me, part of that superhero fantasy that I'm trying to role play in this cartoon is having the breakout moments that I was describing. The Man of Steel, the Speed Force, having a narrative in my head about when I'm using those abilities and being pushed to use powers when the situations call for it, and not just freely all the time on every enemy because I'm trying to wipe everybody out as fast as humanly possible. So again, I think I love Justice League Heroes so much because it is really this epitomization of the superhero cartoons of my youth and the imagination and the creativity I felt towards the characters during that specific time in my life. And with that, we have reached the end of today's side quests. Once again, I am Jake Steinberg. You can find me at youtube.com/@JakeSteinberg. Thank you so much for listening, and happy gaming.
Hey,
Oh, hey, Jeff.
what's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CertainPOV.com.